Adventist. I want to say pleasant Sabbath also to not only the members but our visitors.
Oh yes.
I was saying to a believer here that I knew a young lady who was a nurse in New York, and she also was a believer. For the life of me, I cannot remember her first name, but we worked together in Brooklyn, New York. And they could be family, because it's one of those names that you don't hear everywhere you go.
True.
So I want to welcome you, and it's beautiful to know that not only that you came last week, but the Spirit of God brought you back today.
Amen.
And I know He will continue to bring you, because this is the place where God wants you to be.
Amen.
Our beloved brother also from St. Croix. I saw a picture of St. Croix some time ago, and the interesting thing about the picture, people were on the beach, and an airplane was coming just over their heads to land at the airport. And I said, they better die. I've never been there, you know, but the thing is, it seems to be a beautiful place, and I want to thank God that you're here today. And we'll go to what they have. And I am hoping that. Okay. Right, this seems to be more like it. And I'm hoping that you continue to come, my brother. I want to assure you. Is it me or is it the mic? I want to assure you that God loves you, and He brought you here today to let you know how much He cares.
Amen.
I heard, you know, that Sister, is it Johnson? Johnson, I'm sorry. Sister Johnson, you lost a loved one, and Sister Bailey also.
Yes.
And I want to extend my sympathy on behalf of my family and myself to you both. And I want to assure you that the Lord said, when the righteous die, He says, come into thy chamber and rest thyself as it be for a little while until the indignation be overpassed. So some people, God is laying to rest before the trouble comes. But He will call them forth when it's all over, and you will reunite with them again if faithful.
Yes.
So when your loved one dies, let it be a challenge. Let it be a challenge to you to faithfulness, because you want to see those loved ones when Jesus comes.
Amen.
I also want to comment on the singing. I saw a young lady who seemed to be very fruitful this morning. I think her name is, let me see, I wrote that down. Rita. And I looked at her, and as she was singing there, I said, man, when that lady comes forth, is it a boy or girl? Boy, okay. So when that boy comes forth, he's going to sing just as our beloved brother Robinson.
Oh, yes.
But when you sing, your children hear you, would be amazed to see what your children get from you. Now, I'm not a singer, but I did my best when my wife was pregnant, and I did it at my daughter, and she sings. And she sings beautifully. So keep on singing, my beloved. And brother Robinson, is that your husband? Oh my gosh, you must sleep there every night. when this guy sings, what are you open past? When a voice like that so melodious sings in your ear, sisters, you'll be all the birds chirping in the night. So God bless you both, and continue to love and continue singing, my brother. Hopefully one day we will have that marriage. It will be a blessing. So today God has laid a message on me for His people, and I want to remind you that today is Health and Temperance Day. We as Seventh-day Adventists believe that the health message is the right arm of the gospel.
Yes.
The Apostle John in 3 John 2 said, I would above all things that thou may prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers.
Yes,
and you know, some of us pay attention to the prosperity of the soul, and we pay attention to the prosperity of the finances, but we seem to neglect the health. And sometimes in trying to prosper the soul, or in trying to prosper the finances, we actually destroy the health. God said prosper and be in health even. In other words, you want equilibrium in your prosperity all across the board. So today we are going to talk about healthfulness, the condition and the promise. Let us pray. God in heaven, I am here because this is your will. I am here because this is your people. This is your church. And this is your word. Not I but Christ be honored, love exalted. Not I but Christ be seen, be known and heard. Not I but Christ in every word and action. Not I but Christ in every thought and word. So Jesus to be, let it be Christ, one Christ. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Now I want to say to you, beloved, we may be wondering what is the relationship between the scripture reading and the topic. I want to look at the scripture reading one more time, and it's Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26. I want us to look at it very quickly. And before we get into it, I want to say two things. One, we are not going to discuss the intricacies of biology, of the human genome, of the cells of the body and how they function. We are not going to go into all these things because, truth be told, some of you may understand these things already. And if others don't, you know there was an old saying that goes, shooting above people's heads does not show excellent marksmanship. It just means that you missed the target. So today we are not going to do any shooting above your heads. Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26 tells us this. And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases upon thee which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. The first question you may ask yourself is, did God really put diseases upon the Egyptians? Now, if God, who loves us so much, could put diseases upon people, then the question is, what manner of a God is this? So in order to understand this, we can look at something else. We won't go into the exact depth of the scripture, but I will relate the story to you because everyone knows of this story. Some who saw movies in the times past also have seen the story of the Ten Commandments. Those of us who read the Bible have read of the Ten Commandments, and we realize something interesting happened in the dialogue of the Ten Commandments. In Exodus chapter 7 to 11, something interesting was said from time to time. The scripture says from time to time, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And many people seem to wonder, how then could God harden the man's heart and then punish him for having a hard heart? That's a perplexity to many. But as you read those scriptures more carefully, you would realize that there are times in those passages it also says Pharaoh hardened his heart. So what's happening here? Brethren, what is actually happening here is that every time the manifestation of God's power is demonstrated, Pharaoh says, okay, I surrender. I will do what God wants. And every time God removes the plague, Pharaoh refuses and says, I will not do it. That is a dangerous precedent, beloved, because every time you resist the will of God, it makes you stronger and more self-willed to resist again when God manifests himself. So as God continues to manifest his power, Pharaoh continued to resist. And it came to pass that it reached the point where God had to actually take away the firstborn of Egypt before Pharaoh got the message. And when you think that Pharaoh got the message, he still didn't get the message. Because the Bible says that Pharaoh pursued them with chariots and horses. And God actually had to overthrow Pharaoh in the Red Sea. He didn't get the message, he died. That's a serious thing, beloved. We as God's people have to understand that we cannot expect to resist the will of God and continue to prosper. Amen. This is very important, beloved. As we look into God's word today, we will find much food for thought in regard to healthfulness. Because the truth is, God wants us to be in good health and prosper. Amen. I want to say to our visitors, some things you may hear may be news to you. Members, some of the things you may hear may be news to you also. But I want you to understand, God is bringing a message to you in love. God wants what's best for you. I want you to realize you are God's children. My brother, my sister, and your little one. Jesus paid a price for you. And he will leave no stone unturned, no angel in heaven will remain if you desire to serve God. Every angel will be sent to deliver you.
Amen.
And I want you to understand this is a message of love to you.
Amen.
Yes, it's a challenge to many of us, but it's the love of God. Because what God wants for us is our best good.
Yes.
So we are going to look and ask ourselves the question, what can we do? Or what are the conditions? We talked about the condition and the promise. What are the conditions for healthfulness? Let me read you 8 conditions that God has laid down for us in order to attain healthfulness. Use of sunlight, fresh or pure air, exercise, rest, water, hygiene, diet, and trust in divine power. So we will look at these various aspects one at a time, and we'll seek to find out some of the benefits, because sometimes we talk about these things and we do them, but sometimes we don't understand the benefits or why they are done. And you know, sometimes people seem to think that, you know, the Bible is one thing and science is another, but you will be amazed that the Bible is the best science book you can put your hand on.
Amen.
So we will look at these aspects. Number 1, sunlight. What is the use of sunlight? As you know, it gives light so that we can see our way. Sunlight also fights what is called osteoporosis. That's the weakening of the bones. As we get older, our bones tend to get weaker. If you notice, they have an old saying, once a man, twice a child. And people will tell you, I used to be 5'4", and now I'm 5'2". Now this is osteoporosis. What sunlight does is that it generates in your body vitamin D, and vitamin D helps your body to absorb calcium, which in turn strengthens your bones. Half an hour of sunlight a day will give you enough vitamin D. The sad reality is that we get from the house into the car, and from the car into the office, from the office into the car, from the car into the grocery, from the grocery into the car, from the car into the house, and we don't get the sunlight in the sunshine state. So we must take a little more time in the sunlight, beloved. Step into the sunlight, the song says, step out of the shade. Sunlight also fights cancer, fights depression. Do you know that the people in the places where they have long winters, they have the winter blues? That is because they don't get enough sunlight and they get depressed. So it fights depression. Sunlight also improves healing time. When you go to the doctor, or when you have a surgery, for instance, where I work in the hospital, I work in what they call the outpatient department. So we prepare the patient for surgery and we get them back after surgery to discharge them. Usually the doctor will tell them, keep the dressing on for about 2 days, 48 hours, because you want to protect it from getting bacteria on it. Then remove the dressing and leave it open to air. Why? It's because the healing is better than when you keep it in darkness with a bandage or a band-aid or a dressing over the wound. So it helps improve wound healing. It also decreases pain sensation. When you enjoy sunlight, it increases the intensity of pain should you be having pain for whatever reason. It also improves physical activity as well as health and vitality.
Yes, sir.
So God wants you to enjoy the sunshine, and we have it here, liberally.
Amen.
Fresh or pure air. Now you know, sometimes we go out in the morning, like we get our little cold spells in Florida sometimes, and it reminds us that you're still in America, you know? And when we get our little cold spells, some of us step outside and take a deep breath and say, man, this is fresh air. Let me surprise you. The servant of the Lord, Energy White, made an interesting statement. She says, cold air is not always fresh. So do not think because it's cold, it is fresh. We who live in this industrious area, we who live in these cities that we are surrounded by and encompassed with, we who live where all this manufacturing takes place and all these cars and vans and buses that takes place, that puts out all those pollution into the atmosphere, beloved, it is difficult for us to actually get pure, fresh air. And that is why God has admonished and encouraged his people, go in the countryside. Many trees, beautiful breeze, and the cool of the country, and the air is much more fresh. As a matter of fact, plants actually use carbon dioxide and puts out oxygen, and we can get that oxygen in as we put out carbon dioxide. It's a balance of the ecosystem, whereby they sustain us, we sustain them. And when we are away from this pollution, it's much better for us. I want to let you know also that in terms of breathing pure air, which is 21% oxygen, actually enhances the effectiveness of your white blood cells. White blood cells are the cells that are used to fight bacteria, viruses, funguses, or whatever pathogen invade your body. Is the white blood cells. That's the soldiers of the body.
Yes, sir.
I don't mind they're white, okay? But these are the soldiers. I'm just kidding, friends. They are actually the soldiers of the body, and they are actually the ones that fight off diseases. White blood cell also provides oxygen, and not white blood cells. Oxygen also, or fresh air, provides oxygen. And the thing with oxygen is, when you're in a polluted atmosphere, you have what is called carbon monoxide is being produced. And that is produced by exhaust from cars and trucks and all this stuff. What happens here? Carbon monoxide, because let me step back a bit. When you breathe in air. But in your lungs, there's an exchange that takes place, and oxygen is diffused from the air and taken into what is called the alveoli, which is the little cells of your lungs. And in those little cells, you have capillaries, which are blood vessels. And the oxygen diffused into those capillaries attach itself onto the red blood cells. And that is why your red blood cells, when you breathe in, and they are saturated with oxygen, they call it oxyhemoglobin. So the red blood cells are attached to the oxygen, and they go into the tissue and into the cells of your body to supply energy so that you can function. If you notice some people say, I'm tired, I'm feeling weak, I'm exhausted, I burn out easily, they check their blood. Many times you check their blood and you realize that their hemoglobin is low. And that means that because of the low count of the red blood cells, their body is not getting enough oxygen to supply the energy they need in order to function at a high efficiency. So what happens here? When you live in a polluted environment, you have carbon monoxide, which is not oxygen, and your body can't use it. But carbon monoxide attached to the same binding positions on the red blood cell that oxygen attaches to. So what happens is that when you breathe in and you get carbon monoxide, instead of all your blood cells where it has the capacity to attach to oxygen, you have some carbon monoxide attaching and taking the place of oxygen. So in other words, you get less oxygen in your bloodstream. As a result, the oxygenation of your body is lower. With the result, you get tired, you get weak, you don't have enough energy because you are not getting that oxygen supply to really fully oxygenize your body, your tissues, and your cells. So if you can stay away from this environment as much as possible, if you can get out into the countryside where the air is truly fresh, it will do us a great deal. So I want us to understand also that oxygen, or air rather, or the oxygen actually helps to maintain your heart rate and blood pressure. How does it do that? When your oxygen level drops, your body senses it. Let me tell you something, brother. When David said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, David knew what he was saying. And sometimes, I want to just divert a bit and I'll get back here. Sometimes we seem to think that we are wiser than those people back there because we have cars and computers and we have texting and all this kind of cell phone and stuff like that. When you consider people take, for instance, back in the day, people living 700 and 800 and 600 years, and we are just struggling to make a 60 and a 70.
Yes, sir.
You think you're really wiser than those guys? David said, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And let me tell you, when your body lacks oxygen, it is sensed by the brain, and the brain tells the heart, I'm not getting enough air up in here. So what the heart does, it kicks it up a notch, and the heart begins to beat faster. But as the heart beats faster, it does not fill properly with blood in order to send it through what we call the ventricles, which is the lower portion of the heart that sends the blood into your circulation. So as a result, the heart is beating fast and is not filling properly. As a result, the blood pressure drops. So this is what happens when you lack oxygen. Your blood pressure tends to drop, your heart tends to beat faster because it's a vicious cycle. So the heart is beating faster now to maintain the blood pressure, to maintain the oxygen, and as a result, the blood pressure is dropping and dropping. So brother, we have to make sure that we get enough oxygen in our tissue to maintain our health. It also, oxygen, increases alertness and in energy as well, and oxygen also clears the lungs from harmful substances. Exercise. I heard the story this morning from the young lady about the king. You know, the fat king, the big king, the king who didn't do anything. All right, Pastor C. King Kong. I think King Kong climbed the Empire State Building, didn't he? All right, so what's happening here, beloved, is that, I mean, I'm from Trinidad, as you heard. And I am here in America for several years. And we are having a problem, brothers. And I do not want anyone to take offense to this. We are having a problem of obesity in the United States of America. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that we are the second most obese nation after Mexico. And that's not good. I remember traveling because I like to travel also, and I remember in my travels, my wife, my children, and I, we traveled through several countries in Europe. And I kid you not, beloved, you would see vast majority of people are within their weight structure. I say to people, I say, if you want to know what a good hotel breakfast is, get outside of the United States. All the grains, all the fruits, all the nuts, all the breads. Let me tell you something, brother. They know how to make a breakfast. Yes, sir. And we need to know how to eat, beloved. We have the information, brother. We need to apply it. We need to use it so that we can benefit by it. So exercise is very important. It is important because it improves our mood. It decreases anxiety. It decreases depression. It increases the sensitivity of our body to two neurotransmitters. One is called serotonin and the other is called norepinephrine. And these are brain chemicals. Forget the word neurotransmitter, they are brain chemicals. And these brain chemicals actually stimulate you and make you feel much more happy, much more comfortable, much more elated. So it decreases depression. It also improves your metabolic rate because as you work out, as you exercise, you burn calories. And as you burn off those calories, it tends to help you to maintain your weight. Exercise also helps to decrease belly fat. And that is very important because they tell you when people have a lot of belly fat, it is a harbinger or an indicator of diabetes in time to come. So you want to avoid that because that could cause you to have the problem with diabetes. It also helps to prevent chronic illnesses. In addition, exercise also enhances antioxidant production in the body. And antioxidants are what protects your body from what is called free radicals. Free radicals are elements in our bodies due to our environment and so that actually harms our body cells and make us sick. So exercise also stimulates our body to provide or to produce those antioxidants that fight and kill those free radicals. Exercise improves our memory and protects also against things like Alzheimer's and schizophrenia. And last but not least, exercise also boosts the sex drive. We go to rest. What happens when we rest? Our immune system is restored when we rest. Rest releases what is called cytokines in the body, and cytokines are also disease-fighting agents. Let me tell you something, brother. God has made you a fighting machine. If you think that God did not know sin was coming, think again. The stuff that your body has, the stuff that your body is able to do, the defense that your body is able to mount to fight off diseases, is astounding. We are here in spite of the environment of sin because God has put in us all these defenses. And not because we take chances and do things we ought not and eat as we shouldn't and do other things that ought not and we're still alive and we're still making it. It does not mean that we are doing what's best for us. It just means that God has put in us the inherent ability to stay alive. So rest also improves memory, creativity, concentration, and productivity. Rest also slows the aging process. It repairs and energizes the body. Our growth hormones, our thyroid stimulating hormone, cortisol, and insulin all peak at night while we're resting. And these hormones contribute to appetite control as well as mood regulation, controls how we feel about things. Sometimes some of us just fly off the handle for any little thing. You hear about road rage, a finger going up in the air. I just put that finger up, okay? But brethren, if you're well rested, you're calm, you're comfortable, you are assured, you don't just get angry for everything that happens. We need to take rest. And I want to say to us as Christians and our visitors too, you can even overwork yourself in the work of God. Because sometimes we think, well, I'm doing this for the Lord, I'm doing this for the Lord, I'm doing this for the Lord. God did not ask you to die for Him. When that time comes, that time will be. But until then, He would rather you live for Him. Because when you're dead, you can't do anything for Him. So when that time comes, God will let you know. But until then, life is the name of the game. Rest helps to decrease our weight. And it does this because when insulin peaks on life, what insulin does, it rids the body of all these different fatty acids that accumulate in the body during the day and during our mealtime and stuff like that. But what happens is if we do not rest enough, these fatty acids tend to build up. And then insulin increases to combat the fatty acid. And the insulin has to do something with them. What does it do? It deposits them in the places we don't want, on the hips, in the thighs, in the tummy. And then we find ourselves in the arms, and we find ourselves putting on needless weight. We need to rest, beloved. Rest, it says, also increases our pain tolerance, because painkillers have been found to be less effective if you are not rested. In other words, if you are tired and you are stressed out and you are weary and you didn't have enough sleep, and you are taking pain medications, for instance, it's not as effective as if you are well rested. Water. What is water? Well, what's life without water? Water. Water lubricates our joints. As a matter of fact, the cartilage in your joints, which is the little spacers, the substance that between your joints that prevent bone on bone confrontation and rubbing. This cartilage is actually 80% water. Water also moistens our eyes, otherwise we'll have dry eyes, our eyeballs will crack. Water also forms saliva, and in that saliva you find enzymes, digestive juices that helps to break down your food. Very important. You know they say chew 32 times before you swallow? Yeah. Sometimes we think they say so because you have two teeth in your mouth. But that's not the reason. It means that the more you chew, the more you mix the saliva into the food, and then the food is begin to break down right in your mouth. So when it gets to your stomach, a certain portion of the digestive process has already occurred. And then the gastric juices in your stomach doesn't have to do so much. Many of us suffer from indigestion because we do not chew enough. We eat hurriedly, and then we have heartburn, and then we go to the doctor, and then Prilosec, and then we have to get another medication to treat what the Prilosec causes. In addition to relieving the heartburn, brother, it's a vicious cycle. Take your time and eat in a pleasant attitude.
Yes, sir.
It helps. So, not only does it form saliva, it also moistens, the saliva also moistens our mucous membrane. Because you know, if you ever know what it is to have a dry mouth or a dry tongue, it's like your tongue wants to stick to the roof of your mouth. Saliva helps to prevent that unpleasant experience. Saliva also forms mucus. And what mucus actually is, you know, some people don't like the idea, but what mucus is actually a body defense. So that whenever bacteria invade your body, it produces mucus, especially like in your respiratory tract. It produces mucus. What that mucus does, it traps the bacteria. And when you get rid of that mucus, you get rid of the bacteria. So it limits the movement of the bacteria because it cannot move through the mucus as it would like to. And then when you blow your nose, when you cough, whatever you do, and get rid of that mucus, the bacteria is excreted from your body as well. Water gives your skin a very healthy tone. It also moistens the skin as well. It aids delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the brain because your blood cells are actually embedded in plasma, and 90% of plasma is water. When we look at our blood, it looks red. That's because of the color of the blood cells. But if you should extract plasma and separate it from the blood cells, plasma is a pale yellowish substance. It's not actually red. 90% of that plasma, which is the fluid that the blood cells travel in, 90% of plasma is water. Now, a lack of water, it can cause headaches, constipation, high or low blood pressure, tachycardia, because once your blood pressure drops again, as we said before, your heart rate speeds up in order to compensate. It can cause fainting, elevated electrolyte level, because again, if you do not have enough water in your system, then your potassium level rises, your calcium level rises, all your different electrolytes, sodium level rises, and that's not a good thing. Lack of water causes kidney damage as well. And you know how many people out there are waiting for dialysis. How many are waiting for transplant. Many of you may have family members who have this thing in their arm, they call an AV fistula, and they have to go 3 times a week for dialysis. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything much, can't travel overseas, because why? They have to be dialyzed 3 times a week. And sometimes it's all because you did not drink enough water, you did not take enough care of your kidney, and you lost your kidney. And then lack of water also causes urinary tract infection. So if you find yourself having frequent urinary tract infections, pay attention to the amount of water that you drink. You may need to put in more. Now I want to give you 2 little tips before we move from water. Number 1, drink water instead of sweetened drinks. Because sweetened drinks just add simple sugar, and simple sugar is very harmful to you. You do not want simple sugar, you want complex carbohydrates, and not just simple sugar. You put that sugar, they stir the drink, and you know what? Many of us give it to our children. Have a soda, have a juice, and then the children are bouncing off the walls, and we wonder why. It is because they are too energetic, brethren, because all that sugar is in your food. Drink water instead of juice. Another thought too, eat fruits instead of drinking juice. Why? Because the fruit has not only the juice, it also has fiber. Now fiber has 2 benefits among many. 1, it forms bulk, and that bulk helps to draw out impurities from your body in the form of stool. So fiber keeps your bowels active and keep your intestine clean. Number 2, fiber regulates the release of sugar in your bloodstream. So if you drink juice, for instance, you will get a sugar rush. If you eat fruit, you will not get that sugar rush, because fiber releases the sugar over time, controls the release of the sugar into your bloodstream. Personal hygiene I would like to touch now. In terms of personal hygiene, brethren, you know, what could I say? Sometimes people don't pay attention to hygiene as they should. Sometimes we tell ourselves, you know what, I'll do it when I could. But we need to take at least a bath every day, beloved, or shower. You know, we say bath, we say shower, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
We need to keep our skin clean. We need to brush our teeth.
Yes.
We need to floss our teeth. And I will give you a little tip. Take the floss, make a knot on it, and when you put it between your teeth, actually put it back and forth. That little knot actually gets the plaque off your teeth. And I will share this with you only because I'm giving you this tip. Whenever I go to the dentist, the one thing they always say, man, you do a good job with your teeth. And the reason is because I made that little knot, and that little knot, as you pull it back and forth, actually knocks floss, and knocks, rather not floss, but plaque off your teeth, and keep them clean as well as your gums. So use that little knot, use your floss, use your toothbrush, and also, beloved, please brush your tongue. Many people like to brush the teeth, but they don't pay attention to the tongue. Now, as I told you, I'm a nurse and I work in the hospital, and I work with the anesthesia doctors, and they always have to tell the people, open your mouth and put your tongue out. The reason being, not that they want to see their tongue, but they want to see the opening in your airway to know whether it is difficult or easy if they have to intubate them, which is putting a tube in their throat. But they put the tongue out. And brethren, you see all kinds of tongues. Everybody likes this nice smile, white teeth, but you see all kinds of tongues. And those tongues, brethren, can have bacteria on them, which not only could cause bad breath, but it actually cause you diseases. So please, brush your teeth, floss your teeth, brush your tongue. Hand washing. If you're a nurse, you know what's up with hand washing. In nursing, they tell you this. They say, listen, if you ever come across a question and hand washing is an answer, just put hand washing. They said, you don't even have to read the question, just put hand washing. It is such an obsession with nursing, hand washing. And I would like to say we need to wash our hands, before we eat, wash our hands before we prepare meals, and wash our hands not only after the restroom, but before the restroom. You know, some people talk about wash your hands after the restroom. But brother, I came here and I handled this, I handled that, I handled this, I handled that, then I go to the restroom and handle whatever, and guess what? All the bacteria on my hand. And I will say this, a lot of times we find that women get urinary tract infections faster than men or more than men. It is because their urethra, which is the passage between the orifice of where the urine gets out and the bladder, is shorter, and the bacteria finds its way there easier. So therefore, please wash your hands before and after the restroom as well. And wash your clothing too. You know, you wear it once and it's still looking, there's wrinkles, so you wear it twice and it's not wrinkled, and you wear it 4 times and it looks okay, and you wear it 5 times. Let me tell you what happens, brethren. Whenever we are living beings, and because we are alive, our body perspires, we sweat, we call it perspiration. And perspiration is the body's way of ridding itself of bacteria and stuff that's within our body cells. That's one of the ways of elimination of harmful substances. So when that comes out onto our skin, the expectation is that for us to wash it off. But when we don't wash it off, it's on our clothing, because we have the clothing on our skin. And then we go back and get the same clothing with that bacteria that was on the skin. Meanwhile, the bacteria to multiply, you put it on, and guess what? There is a process called inunction. And that is why they tell you to put this cream on your skin. And certain people have, like, you know, medication patches for this and medication patch for that. They put it on the skin because your skin absorbs whatever is on that patch or whatever rests on it. So when you put that clothing on and the bacteria that was there wasn't washed off, what happens is that your skin takes that bacteria back in and puts it in a more harmful form. And guess what? You infect yourself and you wonder, why am I getting sick? Please wash your clothing with soap and water. Wash it regularly. Wash it well. One other thing before we move off. Cover your nose and mouth when you're sneezing and coughing. Some people just slam it to you as it is. And they give it to you. Brethren, we have to consider others. And not only others, we have to consider ourselves also. And when you do that, try to wash your hands as soon as possible. Because whatever you sneeze out here, it's on your hands. And maybe you may have like nursing assistants or nursing or other people. Sometimes you may find yourself close up to a person and they may be a little sick and you're concerned, but you can't really move away because of whatever. My suggestion to you is, if you are close up to a person and you think they may be sick and you're not in a situation to get away from them, hear what to do. When they breathe out, you breathe out. When they breathe in, you breathe in. Because if you breathe in when they breathe out, whatever they're breathing out, you are breathing in. See what I'm saying? So when you breathe out, when they breathe out, you are breathing out together. And then when you breathe in, when they breathe in, you're breathing in together. So you're not getting what they actually are putting out there. And do your best to get away from people who are sick as soon as possible, because you want to maintain health. Because if you cannot be in good health, you cannot take care of anybody else's health. Whenever you travel on an airplane, they tell you this. They say, in the event of an emergency, oxygen mask will fall from the ceiling. And they always tell you, put yours on first before you help somebody else. Why? Because if you're trying to help somebody else and you don't have oxygen, you will pass out. So if you have yours on, then you can help somebody else. So if you have your health, then you can help somebody else to gain their own. Diet. Very hot topic, but I'll touch it a bit anyway. I want us to look at Genesis 1, and it's verse 29, Genesis 1:29. And there is something interesting that God said here. Genesis 1:29. I will read. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And meat in this case means food. So in other words, before sin, in the Garden of Eden, God gave them fruits to eat and seed. Now let's look at Genesis chapter 3 and verse 18, and we see something different here. Or a little addition to the instruction. Verse 18 says, of Genesis 3, Thorns also and thistles shall they bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. So before it was fruits and seeds, now God has added herbs after sin. Why? Herbs are found to have many germ-fighting chemicals. They call them phytochemical diseases and germs in our system. So now that sin has entered our world, God is giving us an addition to our food supply in order to combat these diseases. This is how God cares. This is how God's love. This is how God is. He wants us to live, beloved. Again, life is God's aim, not death. We go to Genesis chapter 9 and verse 3 and 4, and we see something interesting now. Again, Genesis 9, 3 and 4. And Genesis 9, 3 and 4 says, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the herb or the green herb have I given you all things. But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. So here we see God now adds flesh foods, or what we call meat today, to the diet. Why? Because in Genesis 9, that was after the flood of Noah's day. And after the flood, the vegetation was washed away, and all Noah had was what was in the ark. And this is why God told Noah at this time, at this point, that he can use flesh foods. Now, I will not go into the scripture, but I will relate them and mention them. For instance, Genesis 6, 19 and 20, Genesis 7, 1 and 2, and verse 8 and 9 and 14 to 16. What God told Noah when he was going into that ark, he told him of every clean beast you shall take by the sevens, the male and the female. And of every unclean beast you shall take by the twos, the male and the female. Why? You see, there were three purposes for the clean meat, for the clean animals. Number one, it was to perpetuate the species, because you have to be able to have them to perpetuate the species for them to continue. Number two, for sacrifice, because it was only clean animals that were sacrificed. And number three was for food, because God knows again that the flood would wash away the vegetation. Now of the unclean was only two, the male and female. Why? Because the only means for the unclean was to perpetuate the species. It was never for food, and it was never for sacrifice. You know, you look to them and see people eating any and everything, you know. If it moves, they eat it. Beloved, this was not God's plan. This was not God's plan. After, in the time of Exodus, when Israel came out of Egypt, when God brought them out, Exodus 16:35 shows that what God gave them was manna. Now first he gave them quail, which is those little birds, and then he gave them manna. And the Bible says for 40 years they did eat manna in the wilderness, because God was seeking to revert them back to his original diet. Because after 430 years in Egypt, adopting the ways of the Egyptians, God wanted to bring them back to himself. So he gave them what was the ideal. As a matter of fact, the scripture says, man did eat angels' food. That is to tell you how much God valued their health. So God gave them manna, but in Numbers 11, and you can read it when you go home, they began to clamor, what is this manna? I'm tired of this manna. I don't want any more of this manna. Give me meat to eat. What to God do I the flesh pots of Egypt? So God gave them flesh. You know, sometimes God gives us what we want, even though it's not best for us. But if you keep pushing and pushing, you get what you want. And then they say, be careful of what you ask for. So they did get flesh. And the scripture says it was between their teeth, and some of them were dropping dead. Brethren, God wants us to be healthy. He wants us to eat well. When you think of animal food or animal flesh, you have to ask yourselves, is it as healthy as it used to be? The answer is obviously no. The environment today, beloved, does not make it healthy. Not only that, but who knows if that cow, who knows if that chicken, who knows if that sheep was sick before they actually took it to market in order to kill it, to sell you? Who knows if it was dead? They have to die anyway. You don't know. So you have to ask yourself, is this the best thing for my health? So I'm not telling you go home and throw out all everything you have in your freezer. I'm saying be judicious and be wise, but aim towards God's ideal, which is a diet free of animal flesh. It will be to your best good. It will be to your best health.
Yes, sir.
Ellen White made an interesting statement. I think it's found in the book of Ministry of Healing, and it may be found other places. You can actually Google online and Ellen White writings. Google Ellen White writings and anything you want. Basically, you can type it in there and it will come up. And she said something interesting. She said, among the people of God awaiting translation, flesh food as a part of their diet will eventually be done away with. So in other words, beloved, what does that mean? That means that if you plan to be alive when Jesus comes, you have to give it up. It means if you intend to be in the 144,000, you've got to give it up. It means if you plan to continue to eat flesh all through your life, then it means, and you get to heaven, it means you will get to heaven by the underground railroad. You know what that is, right? That is the way you're going to get there if you intend to hold on to it and not give it up. So let's talk about some other aspects. Caffeine. I find that more and more Seventh-day Adventists are getting into this caffeine stuff. I do not know if it is because some of them go to college, you know, and they have to study and burn the midnight oil. You know that they need to save and set up to, you know, prepare for that test or prepare for that exam or to do that paper or whatever it is. And I find more of them are getting into it. But brethren, we have to know that caffeine actually overstimulates us. It's a stimulant. And what caffeine does is when your body says it's time to rest, it says, no, you go girl, you go. And it just keeps you going beyond your capacity and ability. It drains your vital force. And let me just explain vital force very briefly. Vital force is the amount of life expectancy or life potential that you are born with. You are born and you will live a certain amount of years if you should conduct your life in a very helpful way. But you can take from that vital force by going to extremes and by overdoing and by indulging yourself in habits that you should not partake of. The sad reality is that you cannot add to your vital force. You only have withdrawal slips, no deposits. So if you find yourself in a situation whereby what you are doing is actually using caffeine and these things to keep you going when you should stop, when you should rest, when you should replenish, when you should refresh, you are actually robbing yourself of life. No wonder the wise man said, why wouldst thou die before the time? So let's leave them alone. Alcohol. There's an interesting phrase. Every time you look at TV and you see them talk about alcohol and you hear a phrase, drink responsibly. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Every drink of alcohol you take does permanent damage to your system.
Amen.
And I do not know how responsible that is. As a matter of fact, brother, let me tell you, we have to understand our physiology and how many of these things that are on the market are actually harming us. And many people who manufacture these things, who are responsible for producing them, don't use them themselves. And you know, sometimes when people do these things, they say, well, I'm enjoying life. My question is, how could you enjoy life by destroying it? So we have to ask ourselves, what am I doing to myself here? Not only to you is alcohol harmful in terms of poisoning your liver, intoxicating your brain, and altering your mind, but much of the domestic violence in our world today is due to alcohol. Much of the poverty in our world today is due to alcohol. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen or heard of a husband who went and bought cigarettes and smoked his entire salary out in cigarettes and then go home broke? Never happened. Have you ever heard of a husband who drank his entire salary out and go home broke? Yes. All the time. And then he kicks the dog, beats his wife, and terrorizes the children. That is what alcohol does, brother. And alcohol is responsible for so many deaths on our roads and highways. And you know the irony of it is? The irony is, for the most part, the alcoholic, the drunk, the drinker, the irresponsible man or woman, like the girl from Coral Springs who was driving up the wrong way on sawgrass, too drunk to care. She lived and the two women died.
Yeah.
literally is for some reason the drunkard live. I remember years ago, a guy crashed into a school bus, 27 students died, and he lived. Drink responsibly. Really. Beloved, let's not get carried away with those things. I would like to say one other thing in regard to alcohol. You know, sometimes many of us may not drink it. You know, we may not, put a bottle to our heads or a glass to our heads. But some of us like to spike the cake and soak the fruits. You know what I'm talking about? And then you know what we say? Well, it disappears anyway. It evaporates. But why do you spike it? Why do you put it if it evaporates? Let me ask you a sobering question. If you put money into your bank account, and every time you put money in your bank account, it disappears, how long would you put money in that account? Brethren, you taste it, you smell it, that's why you put it. And you know it's still there. So let's be honest, brethren. God knows your heart. He knows that you want a little kick. He knows. So let's be honest. If you really want to do what's right, leave it alone. Now I want to say to you one other thing about these three elements: alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. Some years ago I was studying on, it's a book that was doing with EKGs, the rhythm of your heart, and how to detect rhythms of your heart and what contributes to certain rhythms of the heart and so. And now this is a secular book, and I was reading up about this stuff. And what they were saying is about what they call atrial arrhythmia. Now the atrium, as many of you would know, is the top portion of your heart. Your heart has 4 chambers, 2 on top and 2 below. The top ones are called atriums and the bottom ones are called ventricles. And what they were telling you is that just about every atrial arrhythmia or irregular beat that's caused by the atrium actually stems from the use of alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. And I'm talking a secular book I'm reading. Just about every atrial arrhythmia, they said alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. So if you want a strong heart, a healthy heart, leave it alone. Okay. Now I want to introduce to you something that some of you may have heard before and others may not have. It's a word called epigenetics. Now why I want to introduce that to you is because all these factors I've touched so far has relation to epigenetics. Now science, in around 1952, thereabout, they began to realize this thing that they call epigenetics. And epigenetics, the word epi means on top of, in addition to, or along with. And epigenetics just basically says that your genes are not the only thing that determine your outcome. For instance, there are some people who say, well, my mom had diabetes and I will expect to have it too. My father had high blood pressure and I expect to have it too. They had kidney failure or whatever and I expect to have it too. Epigenetics says no. Epigenetics basically says that your environment, your diet, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and these elements can actually affect how your genes are expressed. Now, genes, which is the components of DNA, they have a certain system, a certain sequence. And based on the sequence, it will tell you whether this is this type of a protein or that kind of a protein, or it's going to go into this type of cell or that kind of cell. The sequence or the order remains the same. But the way it is manifested or the way it produces could change based on these different elements. So epigenetics says that you may not have the disease that your parents had if you do not live the life your parents lived. And epigenetics also says you may have the disease that your parents didn't have if you don't live the healthy life your parents lived. So in other words, for instance, if you have like your little baby and you know maybe there are certain things you were doing that may have contributed to some medical problem you have at this time, what you have to say is, you know what? I'm not going to do for my child what I did to myself. I'm going to change your diet. I'm going to change your lifestyle. I'm going to change this or change that. And by doing so, you will be amazed to realize whatever problem you have, your child will not inherit it. Amen. And if you are healthy, then give that child the lifestyle you follow so that they will be able to enjoy good health and long life. Amen. So that's basically what epigenetics tells us. Amen. Now the final element of good health, I save the best for last. Trust in divine power.
Amen.
Trust in divine power. Now let's talk first of what trust in divine power is not, and then we'll look at what it is. Trust in divine power is not standing idly by and waiting for God to do everything for us. Trust in divine power is not living recklessly and expecting God to heal all our maladies. Trust in divine power is not believing because we are Christians that God will always intervene to save us from hardship, disappointment, suffering, or loss. That is not what trust in divine power is. Now let's see what it is. Trust in divine power is believing and knowing that God knows what's best for us, not just for time, but for eternity. Amen. Trust in divine power is believing and accepting His will for our lives, whatever that will may be. It is trusting and obeying Him, even though what He says does not make sense, or even though it may lead to hardship, disappointment, suffering, and loss. Trust in divine power is realizing and understanding and accepting that He not only is our Creator, but our loving Heavenly Father, who loves us with an infinite love, so much so that He gave His only begotten Son, emptying heaven in that one gift, Jesus Christ, the just suffering for the unjust, that He may bring us to God through His Son. Trust in divine power is human effort, submitting and uniting to divine power. Let me share two quick examples. In the case of Joshua, when he was fighting the Amalekites at the event when he called on the sun to stand still, Ellen White commented on that experience. She said Joshua prayed as though victory depended on God alone, and he fought as though victory depended on Israel alone. That is what trust in divine power is. Let's look at Jesus for a quick example. When Lazarus died and Jesus went to the grave of Lazarus, He said to the people, roll over the stone. Couldn't Jesus move it? Of course He could. But they could do it. So whatever human could do. And when time to call Lazarus, He called him by name, because if He did not call Lazarus by name, every dead would have come out of that grave. That's divine power. Amen. And when He called Lazarus forth, He said to the people, loose him and let him go. So in other words, divine power did what only divine power could do, but divine power left for human power what human could do.
Amen.
And you know, sometimes we have a practice, you know, something go wrong in church or things happening in the world or whatever, I'm saying, God will fix it, God will take care of it. We leave it to God. But then sometimes we leave it to God what God has left to us.
I hear you, preacher.
You want to say it again?
Yes.
Sometimes we leave to God what God has left to us. Amen. And nothing happens because we waiting on God and God is really waiting on us. Let's be careful of being deluded, beloved. Trusting in divine power leaves us stress-free, worry-free, free from fear and doubt, full of confidence and assurance in God, with whom is no variableness, no shadow of turning. In God, in whom all things are possible. In God, with whom nothing shall be impossible. That's what trust in divine power does. Now I would like to say as we close, beloved, why did God conclude this command with a promise? I am the Lord that healeth thee. Why did He precede this promise with a statement, I will put none of the diseases upon you which I have brought upon the Egyptians? Now God knew after 430 years in Egypt that the Israelites were affected by the lifestyle of the Egyptians. They ate the diet of the Egyptians. They lived the life of the Egyptians. They wore the clothing of the Egyptians. They even worshipped at the altars of the Egyptians and even the gods of the Egyptians. How do I know that? I know that because when they went into the wilderness, they were clamoring for meat. They were clamoring for the diet of the Egyptians. Would to God we were back at the flesh pots of Egypt. So they were clamoring for what they knew. They ate the diet. How do I know they worship their gods? When Moses went up into the mountain with God, after God had demonstrated his power and majesty in declaring the 10 commandments, the mountain was shaking, smoke was coming from the top of the mountain, fire, lightning and thunder, the entire earth shook. Even Moses said, I exceeded fear and quake. The people said, Moses, talk to us. Don't let God talk to us anymore, for we are afraid. And after all that manifestation of the power of God, Moses was up in the mountain talking with God. And they said, for that man Moses, we don't know where he is. Let us make a God and go back to Egypt. They made a golden calf.
That's what they did.
These be like gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Just after God said to them, thou shalt not make unto thee any image, or the likeness of anything in the heaven above, the earth beneath, nor of the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. Here was Israel bowing to a golden calf. Yes, they worship the gods of the Egyptians. But I want you to know, beloved, that today God is saying to you and to us, I am the Lord that healeth thee. Today God is saying to us, I know you have lived in the land of Egypt. Yes, I know. But I am calling you out.
Yes.
Because I'm the God of second chances.
Amen.
God is saying to us today, to our visitors, He is saying, I know that some of you are still challenged and struggling with some of these issues. I know you may have heard strange things today. But God is saying, all that I am asking is for your best good.
Yes.
God wants you to know, He wants you to understand. I have loved you with an everlasting love, and in loving kindness I'm calling you.
Amen.
And God is saying, everything I ask, if you do, you will not receive the diseases of the Egyptians.
Amen.
I am the Lord that healeth thee. God is saying to our members also, I know that some of you have left Egypt, but Egypt have not left you. Remember Lot's wife? And God is saying today, I am He, and there is none else. God is saying to you also, I am God who heals you. God is calling you, brother, to live the life that He expects you, that He wants you to live. There is no good thing when you withhold from them that walk uprightly.
Amen.
He said, I know the thoughts that I have towards you. They are thoughts of peace, to give you hope, and to give you an unexpected end. God is calling on us today, beloved, to give our lives to Jesus Christ. God is calling on us to recommit ourselves to Him. Let me tell you something. If you think that you will have an unhealthy body and a healthy mind, God is fooling yourself. Because the body houses the brain and the brain houses the mind. We are what we eat.
Amen.
Physically, mentally, socially, psychologically, and spiritually. And this is why God is calling on you and I today. Reformation, revival, total transformation.
Yes.
God is calling on us to change. Beloved, visitors and members, today, while it is said today, if you shall hear His voice, harden not your hearts. Let us pray. Father in heaven, this is your people. Sometimes these are things we have heard before. We may be tempted to say, I know that already, I've heard that before. But Jesus, today you are reminding us. Because sometimes even though we know, we still don't do. But you said to us, if you hearken unto my voice and do, then the promise will come. If we do not meet the condition, we cannot receive the promise. And we are told that all the threatenings and the blessings of God are based on conditions of obedience or disobedience. Today, in the name of Jesus, I call upon you, Lord. Bless your people. Help us to hear. Help us to hearken. Help us to believe. Help us to do. Help us to trust. Help us to obey. And I pray for our visitors also, that they may understand that you want what's best for them, not only in heaven, but even on it. Hear our prayer. Grant us thy peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. May God bless you, beloved. And keep us safe. Amen.
servant has spoken. Said the Lord. And I know we have been blessed. Let's stand down and just sing the closing hymn, 608, Faith is a Victory. 608.
Heavenly Father, your words, oh God, are so true. Oh God, you loved us with such an everlasting love. You have covered every base. You have touched us with your word and the words of your manservant, guiding us, oh God, to do the right thing. Lord, you provided the proper food. You provided the way we should worship. You provided the way that we should walk. You even provide salvation that we can have everlasting life through Jesus. Lord, humble our hearts, please, we pray. Humble us, Lord, that we can go on our knees believing every word that is written, and being, oh God, obedient to everything that you say. That's how we should be until Jesus comes and forevermore. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Let me seat it. As you trust him, so that we may overcome with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Remember this silent we ushered out now, and after that we have lunch. Those who want to remain in peace with us, food, and only spiritual but physical food, fellowship with us here. We have lunch for you, so remain with us. Amen. God bless you.